Welcome back to No Overtime. Today we will talk about award predictions, NFL injury updates, and of course our Week 15 game picks.
All right, so let's start with our MVP predictions for the NFL season.
All right, so right now my MVP pick, I'm going to go with Joe Burrow. I feel like no one really talks about him right now for MVP, but his stats speak for himself. He leads the league in touchdowns, and he's just having an outstanding season.
Yeah, I think if they make the playoffs, he could definitely be the MVP pick, but right now, they're a couple games below 500, so I think it may be a little hard for him to win MVP.
Yeah.
And because of team record, I'm going to go with Josh Allen. I think, the Bills have looked great this season. Josh Allen obviously just had a great game, and even though they lost to the Rams, but I think Josh Allen's got a good chance to win this year.
All right, now moving on to Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels for the Commanders. I don't think a lot of people expected him to have the season he's having right now.
Yeah.
And, he still has some things he needs to develop, but I think he's obviously one of the best offensive rookies in the league right now.
Yeah, I agree with you on Daniels. I think we should also mention Brock Bowers. He just broke the rookie tight end reception record, and he's just carrying that Raiders team. I know they don't have a good record, but he's their whole offense right now. And I think he just looks outstanding. I think I would still go with Daniels, but he's sneaky.
Yeah. Now, let's go to our Offensive Player of the Year. I'm going to go with Saquon. I mean, the dude's having an outstanding season. 1,600 rushing yards, and, I mean, he's the best running back in the league. He has some of the best stats in the league.
Yeah, I mean, if he's got the chance to have 2,000 rushing yards, this should be pretty easy. I don't think it's really going to be a debate.
All right, next up, we got our Comeback Player of the Year. Who's your pick?
All right, I'm going to go with Sam Darnold. A lot of people wrote him off last year. I think he came from the 49ers. And, he was expected to be the backup, but all of a sudden he's the starter. And, I mean, Minnesota is going to be one of the top seeds in the NFC. But from what I'm hearing, he may not be eligible. So if he's not, I'd say it would probably go to Joe Burrow or Nick Chubb, both coming off some pretty serious injuries. Obviously, Nick Chubb hasn't really come back to his normal self yet, and I don't know if he ever will, but Joe Burrow looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, I like Darnold's, but I think I'm going to have to go with Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
After that torn ligament in his throwing hands, he couldn't even throw a football last season, and I think he checks the boxes for this award.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right, let's dive into some of our Week 15 game picks. First up, we got the Jets versus the Jaguars. What do you think?
All right, I'm going to go with the Jets here. I know I've probably taken the Jets in over half of these, and, they only have 3 wins. But they didn't look too bad last week versus the Dolphins. Obviously, the Jets just kind of give away the game in the fourth quarter. But, I mean, they're playing a Jaguars team with Mac Jones. No Evan Ingram now. He's out for the season. And Jacksonville's defense is one of the worst in the league. This should be a dominant Jets win, but at the same time, you never know with the Jets.
Yeah, especially after that last week loss against the Dolphins. But I'm with you on the Jets here. I think the Jaguars are one of the worst teams in the league. I think their defense is horrible. And obviously the Jets defense, it's had its issues this year, but it's still one of the best, and I think it's going to cause some issues for Mac Jones. All right, next up, the Bills at the Lions. Who do you got?
All right, I've got to go with the Lions here. This is such a good game. I think this has potential for Game of the Year. But the Lions have been just a really consistent team. They probably have the best offense in the league. And, their defense is still, I would say, top 10. But the Bills, they're a tough matchup. But, when it comes down to a close game like this, I'm going to take the Lions, with the home field advantage. And I think this is going to be a shootout.
Yeah, I agree with the Lions as well. They're tough to beat at home, especially with that home crowd advantage and, the entire city on their back. And Jared Goff in that offense has just been rolling, and I think they're going to get things done.
Yeah, Jared Goff, he actually is a different player at home versus away. He's really comfortable playing at home. But let's move on to the Rams at 49ers. So this one's tough, but I went with the Rams.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go. I went with the Niners. Even with the injuries, I still think they would be able to pull through. But they weren't able to, and they weren't able to overpower the Rams at home.
Yeah, that was kind of a low-scoring game. I was a little surprised by that. Deebo Samuel, just the struggles continue with him. He dropped what could have been a wide-open touchdown pass, and both quarterbacks didn't look too great.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the Buccaneers at the Chargers. I'm going to take the Buccaneers here. From what I'm hearing, Justin Herbert's a little banged up from an injury on the Monday Night Football game or the Sunday Night Football game. And Tampa Bay, they're just like a hot team right now. I think they're just going to keep rolling in. They'll take advantage of, a banged up Justin Herbert.
Yeah, same here. Bucks all the way. They've got a good chance to make a late push for the playoffs, but I think they'll get things done on the road, especially, they've won a few in a row.
Yeah.
They're 7-6, and I think they have a chance to sneak into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now the Steelers versus the Eagles. We both have the Eagles here. The Steelers have been tough, but I think the Eagles are just too complete, with Brown, Barkley, Hurts. They have a complete offense and a very solid defense.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting about the Eagles is A.J. Brown hasn't really been getting, targeted as much in years past. They're really not throwing the ball because they don't need to. If they could just rely on the ground game, Saquon Barkley's good for a touchdown and 100 yards a game. Jalen Hurts and the tush push, that's unstoppable.
Yeah.
And if they need a throw, you have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. So the Eagles just look really good right now. Steelers don't have George Pickens, so I'm going to have to go with the Eagles here.
All right, and now for our upset games of the week. What's your game?
All right, I'm going to go with the Cowboys to beat the Panthers. The Panthers have actually been pretty good lately, but I think they're due for a letdown. The Cowboys were pretty competitive in a game with the Bengals, and I'll just, take the team with more star power, even though they're a little banged up. I'll take CeeDee Lamb and the Cowboys to beat the Panthers.
Yeah, I like it. A little surprised that the Panthers were, they're the favorites to win that game. But for me, I'm going to take the Colts to upset the Broncos. The Broncos have been shaky, and I think the Colts with Jonathan Taylor and, Richardson starting to play a little bit better now, I think they have a chance to come out on top. Before we wrap things up, let's review a few of our key NFL injury updates. First, we have the 49ers backfield, which is a little banged up with McCaffrey. He's out for the rest of the regular season. And Jordan Mason, who's been placed on injured reserve.
Yeah, it's a huge loss for the 49ers, Even, obviously, McCaffrey being hurt is bad, but I think, that Jordan Mason injury is bad, too. He was really good at the start of the season, but now they're kind of relying on Isaac Orendo. They're going to have to throw the ball a little more, but I just don't – this just may be, a lost cause for the 49ers at this point.
Yeah, next up we got Jonathan Brooks of the Panthers, who tore his ACL. This is his second ACL tear in the last 13 months, and he's out for the season, and it's looking like a serious injury for next year as well.
Yeah, it's sad to see a young player like this, especially a rookie, dealing with two very serious injuries, one that he had in college and now in his rookie season, and this honestly puts his career and next season in jeopardy, It's just, you hate to see it.
Yeah, it's a big blow. Moving on to George Pickens of the Steelers. He's dealing with a grade 2 hamstring strain. He's listed as doubtful for Week 15, and it sounds like he can miss some more time after that.
Yeah, so this is a big loss for the Steelers. The Steelers don't throw the ball that much, but I will say maybe they just want to – they know it's going to be a hard game to beat the Eagles. They're going to bring him back to play maybe the Ravens next week, which I think a game he could play well in. The Ravens are pretty bad in the secondary. And, that's a huge divisional game. They actually beat the Ravens previously in the season. So, hoping to get him back next week.
Yeah, and then we got Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, two of the top running backs in the league, both dealing with injuries. The severity of both these injuries are still unclear, but the emergence of both teams' backups has been impressive.
Yeah, we saw Zach Charbonnet on the Seahawks having, I think, over 190 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Honestly, he looks better than Walker. And then Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen on the Jets looked pretty good, I wouldn't be surprised if they shut down Breece Hall for the season. Kenneth Walker, they'll probably try to get back, but I think they'll be safe with him.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of No Overtime. We'll be back next week for more NFL and NBA analysis, game picks, and injury updates.